boy Petty Owens from thefinanceboy.com. If you have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to give me a call or shoot me an email. My phone number is 347-528-9878. Our email is thefinanceboy@gmail.com. Now, I wanted to go over today what is going to be our investment philosophy and what it is that we're going to believe in, because this is going to set the foundation for the longevity of the performance of our investment club's portfolio. And about a year ago, I came to the conclusion that it's best to think about the stock market in the most basic and simplistic way. And so I figured, what easier way to think about the stock market than to focus on the three basic necessities of human life. And that is our food, clothing, and shelter. And to sort of adjust ourselves to living in the 21st century, I'm also adding the banking industry and the Japanese yen, because the Japanese yen is going to allow us to offset any losses that may occur in the short term in order for us to achieve the long-term performance that we feel like we can do for our investment club's portfolio. The first industry I want to discuss is going to be the real estate industry. The real estate industry is obviously very essential because every person has to have a shelter, or let's just hope that they have the money to be able to finance themselves so that they can get a shelter. And the history of this is basically, I'm sure, somebody thought to themselves, instead of just buying and building a house for themselves, why not let somebody else borrow the materials that they have in exchange for being able to pay them, let's say on an every month-to-month basis, assuming that, mortgages, and some way of being able to pay back that person for loaning out their materials for them to be able to build their house. And so we definitely think that whether it's 100 years from now or 75 years from now, human beings as they exist are always going to need and always going to have a desire to look for shelter so that they can be able to have a living for themselves. The second industry I want to focus on, and what I think is essential, obviously, to humans' life, is food. Now, the food industry is just as important, probably more important than the real estate industry, because before you can think about having any shelter, you have to be able to, how are you going to be able to provide food for yourself? And so the fooding industry was definitely, been around for centuries as well, too, back to the importing and exporting industry of commodities, which was, could be anything from apples, cocoa, to natural gas. So I definitely think in the next 75 to 100 years, the food industry is still going to be a reliable industry, and definitely with the ever-changing future ahead of it. The third industry that I want to focus on is the clothing industry, because once you got your shelter together and obviously you can get yourself food every day, you're going to be obviously thinking about how to get the cheapest prices or the best prices when it comes to clothing. And therefore, we think the clothing industry is going to be around for a long time too. And clothing is basically comes out of raw materials as well. Cotton can be grown, which is, as I'm sure you remember, is how the basic history of our people in the African American community. Except now we're not going to be the ones picking cotton anymore. We're going to be investing into cotton, or investing into the things that cotton can produce, which can sell to consumers, which can relate to the retail industry, and so on and so forth. So the next industry I want to focus on is going to be the banking industry. And the banking industry is so important today because it's our way of living in a capitalistic society that allows us to be able to have the freedom, or not have the freedom to be able to do or buy the things that we want to do in our life. And so when you have a better understanding of the banking industry, you'll have a better understanding of how we can go about living life, not just for ourselves, but for our family and our friends, nieces, nephews, cousins, mothers, fathers, grandfathers, grandparents, and whatever the case may be at that point. So we're going to focus on the banking industry so that we can always be able to know the skill of how to produce $1, $1,000, $1 million when it comes to investing into the stock market and that industry. The last thing we're going to focus on is the Japanese yen. Now, the Japanese yen is going to serve its purpose for us to be able to preserve our capital and withstand any short-term losses in order to make sure that we fulfill our long-term vision of being able to rely on the three basic necessities of life as an income-producing machine for our family and friends. So the Japanese yen is basically going to be able to have us make money as the stock market goes down for a much cheaper price than us having to be able to short sell any stock or the overall market. And I'll get more into short selling and exactly what that is as time goes on. But that's not really important today. But I'll tell you what the bottom line important is, and it's how you think about the stock market. From this day forward, I don't want us to think about the stock market as just a place for Wall Street. I want you to think about the stock market as an everyday way of living life. You can see the stock market in your home. For example, it's your refrigerator, it's the food you have, it's the clothes you're wearing, it's the house you live in, it's where you go to work at, it's how you pay your bills, it's where you do your banking. The market is everywhere. So for us to put it in a simple way, whenever I think about the stock market, I think it's easiest for us to think about it like this. Whenever you're going to go buy anything as a consumer, you want to get the greatest value for the cheapest price. Well, it's the same thing as an investor. So whenever we're going to the stock market, which is kind of like a grocery market, we want to get the greatest value for the cheapest price, except instead of buying items such as, deodorant, wine, shower curtains, or whatever the case may be, we're actually buying companies themselves that produce and make a profit off of the things that people buy. And so it's just a different perspective for looking at an everyday way of life. So with that being said, I wish you all the best of luck. Have a wonderful day, and God bless.